All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the garage. Today I'm installing a Tesla wall connector in my garage. See behind me, I have two Teslas. I have a Model S and a Model Y. I have one Tesla wall connector already installed, and that's been charging primarily my Model S, and then the Model Y has been using a various assortment of third-party level 2 chargers or the Tesla mobile connector. I've had this. I haven't installed it because I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to get the knowledge and tools and parts, everything I could, to really do it for myself, because the first one I got installed in my garage, I hired an electrician, and after kind of seeing how it was installed, I'm like, man, I could have easily done that myself. I wasted $600 paying this guy to install it when I did a lot of the work. I like ran the cable, I kind of navigated where to run the wire, and so I could have easily hooked it up to my panel. But now that I have a little more knowledge about electrical work, I feel confident doing it myself, and I want to show you my installation and how this is going to work in my garage. So a few of the things I'm going to need, obviously you need a wall connector. This is the old style 18-foot cable one. That's why I didn't install this. The one I have installed now is the 24-foot one. Back when I bought this, 18-foot was the only version available, and then they came out with the 24-foot. I bought the 24-foot and installed that. So I have the wall connector. It's pretty straightforward. I need a new breaker for my panel. I'm going to explain this a little more in detail when we get down to the breaker box to show you exactly why I chose this style of breaker and how this is going to work for my setup. The wire I'm going to use is it's made by Cero Wire. It's the same as Romex, but it's just a different company that made it. It's a 6.2 NMB wire, so it's got two power connectors and a ground. That's the only type of wire you need to install this. It doesn't use a neutral ground, doesn't use a neutral wire, it just uses two power leads and then a ground wire. This type of wire is appropriate if you're running it in walls, ceiling joists, attics, things like that I'm doing. This isn't meant to be run in conduit, so if you're running conduit, you need a different kind of stranded individual conductors for that application. So this is appropriate for my application. I have a 125-foot roll of this. Probably won't take that much, but I do have a long run. I want to show you my situation. Now my situation, my garage setup, my panel, my wire run is going to be different than yours, but maybe by watching this video you'll see that maybe it'll give you some confidence to tackle this on your own. Here's where my existing wall connector is located. You can see this is the 24-foot version, and it charges my Model S here. This 24-foot one will also reach around this side and the back of the Model Y over there and charge that too. So this has been nice to have. I do have a NEMA 1450 outlet I can plug my mobile connector in, and it can reach to the back of the car here. But where I want to mount this wall connector is right here in the back, where I have the kind of the holder for my Tesla plug. So right in this area here, I want to mount it right here because it's right next to the back of the car. I don't have to unravel the cable very much. It's out of the way. It'll plug in nicely here, and then it'll also reach to the back of the Model S if I need to as well. So it'll have some versatility in having it right there. One of the challenging part of this installation is going to be the wire run, and that might be the case in your situation as well, just running the wire to this. So if you can see right here, this part of the wall juts out. This is where some HVAC ducting is right here, and then it goes down into the basement. Right in that little panel there, it goes down to my basement, and that is where my HVAC room is, my electrical panel is. So what I'm going to have to do to get power from down in the basement, down below that wall there, over to there, is I'm going to run wire up to this point here. It's going to go up this ducting shaft here into my attic. Luckily I have attic access right there, and then I'm going to drill into the top plate up there, and it's going to run inside of the wall down and come out. That's where it's a little complicated. This whole wall, this garage is insulated, so there's insulation in this wall, so it's not as easy to pull wire through a wall that's insulated versus one that's just an empty cavity. I'm in my basement here. This is where my electrical panel is. I have a main panel and a sub panel. And the challenge I've been having and that I've been trying to learn about is making space in my panel for an additional breaker, because if you can see my panel here, and even my sub panel over there, it's completely full of all the breakers it can handle. There's no additional room for any more breakers. So that was the challenge I was having. My current wall connector, Tesla wall connector, is on this number 2728 circuit. It's on a 60 amp breaker. Now that's actually a little stronger than it should be. It should probably only be a 50 amp with that 6.2 Romex wire. So here's what I'm doing for the solution for this. Now my if you can see on my electrical box, it's made by Eaton is the brand. So when you're finding replacement breakers, you want to get the same brand. So this one is an Eaton breaker compatible with my panel. So what I'm doing is I'm going to remove this 60 amp breaker right here, and I'm going to replace it with this quad pole 50 amp breaker that's going to be able to accommodate both my wall connectors, and it's going to fit in the same slot that only one connector is right now. So how this is going to work is it has one circuit in the middle. So the existing one has a black and a white wire. Those are going to be right in these two middle ones. And then the new one's going to be on the outside, and it's going to have the black and the white wire right here, and then I'll just ground the ground wire inside the panel here. So this was the solution I came up with, is having this kind of breaker. So routing the wires, once I know I got to get to the panel here, I just got to run the wire. If you can see up into the ceiling there, that's where all the wires come down. I'm going to run it up there through that way, and this is that ducting that I can show you from the garage. So it's going to go through there, and then it's going to go all the way up into the attic. For this part, I'm trying to measure exactly the exact wall cavity I want to go down when I'm up inside of the attic. So I've got my ladder here. I have it lined up so that this edge of this ladder here is lined up with the edge of this. So I can put my tape measure on the 2x4 that's right above that, so I can translate the coordinates across. So I want to measure across from here. If I want my wall connector over here, now I got my stud finder out, and I found my studs here, here, and here, because I want to have the Tesla wall connector somewhere in this area here, and I need to know where the studs are to know like which wall cavity I want the wire to come down from the ceiling. So I'm going to get the measurements, how far it is from the edge of the ladder to this stud, and then to that stud, and to that stud, and then I can kind of know when I'm up in the attic how far over I need to go, and then drill down so I can stay in the wall. And I'm doing this because I don't want to have exposed conduit. I don't want to have a big piece of conduit coming down on my garage wall. It just doesn't look good. I want a really clean installation. So some of the things I'm taking up into the attic, it's a drill with this is a 1 3/8 hole saw bit. This is gonna drill a hole into the top of the 2x4 to put the wire through. I've got a light, tape measure, and my wire. I'm up in the attic, and this is where I need to go. Right between those joists there, I need to go into the top plate of the wall there. So I need to make my way down there. I first need to measure to make sure that's going to be deep enough. That is a false wall. That's not my outside wall. That's kind of like a false wall, and there's another couple feet after that. So I may only be able to go that far. Hopefully it's at least 10'8". That's as far as I need to go that way. Luckily 12 feet is right there, right before this false wall. So I just need to go right into there, find the top of the wall 2x4 plate, and see if I can drill down in there. Okay, I found the spot to drill right here. So see those nail holes right here? I know that's where a stud is. This is the 12-foot mark, so I'm just past that, and I want to make sure I'm drilling as close to the front as possible so I can access this cavity and avoid as much insulation as possible. All right, I got drilled through the top plate. The top plate was actually 2x4 stacked on top, so it was pretty thick. Got my hole drilled. I'm just gonna run my wire down through and then try fishing it out. I managed to get the wire pushed down inside of the wall all the way up from the top down, and it's inside this cavity right here. This was my 12-foot mark. I drilled the hole about right there, so the wire's pushed down. What I want to do now is I just need to figure where I want to mount the wall connector and where I need to cut into the wall to retrieve the wire. So what I'm thinking of doing, this is the back plate of the wall connector. We have our 2 power wires and our ground go here, but there's a knockout here on the bottom right that I could screw into the stud here and here, and then I could have the wire coming through here. So I'm thinking if I can have if I can retrieve the wire, maybe I cut a hole about this big behind this part here. I should be able to get the wire out. So let's cut the drywall here. Drywall knife, cutting tool. Okay, hopefully if I reach in there, I'll find a wire. All right, guys, so I got the wire down through the wall. I actually cut a couple other holes because I didn't think I got the right cavity, and I just tried pulling it out and pulled it back down and found the wire. So we're all good there. Now I just got to patch some drywall holes before I get this set up. How this is going to work, I have the knockout. I did the bottom right knockout on the wall connectors mounting plate here. I have this a electrical cable staple to the stud. There's a stud right here. This is stapled to. So how this is going to sit is it's going to sit like this. And the nice thing is there's a stud right here, so I'll be able to put two screws right into a stud, and it'll be very secure. So I just need to repair this drywall hole here and this one here. Drywall, mud, and paint it just so that it's everything's all repaired before I start mounting this up in place. So real quick on how I'm repairing this drywall is I have a little piece. This is a 1 by 2 inch just piece of wood that I had laying around. I have 4 of these, 1 for each hole. What I do is I'm going to put it inside the hole so that it's on either side of the hole. It's protruding there. I'll just get a drywall screw, 1 on each side of this. 1 on the top, on the bottom, and I sunk the screw in far enough so that way I can just mud right over that. So now that board's really firm in there, and then all I'll do now is I'll just take the square that I had cut out, be able to screw it right onto that board. Go around the edges and just spray from this foam insulation around the edges to seal that up, and then I'll scrape it off once it dries and then mud it. Okay, so while I'm waiting for this this drywall to kind of dry up and I gotta mud and tape it, that's kind of I have to wait a little while for that. In the meanwhile, what I do is I gotta go back up in the attic and I got to straighten out the rest of the cable. It's all bunched up there, so I'm gonna go up there. I'm gonna use these staples to secure it to the joists and the rafters up there, and then I need to run the wire, the 6-2 wire, all the way over to here. I'm going to drop it down, and there's actually a hole right underneath there, and I'm going to drop it down into. I'll be able to reach from under there, pull it through. Once I pull out all the slack, I'll be able to send it this way into my utility room. Here's the top of the duct work. I'm going down on the side here, all the way down to the bottom. All right, now that I got the wire dropped all the way down through, all the slack pulled out, I'm now going to take the end of it, put it back through up here, and push it all the way through down into my utility room. Wire brought through, and I was able to just kind of estimate. It's going to go to here, and then it's going to go down into the box. I overestimated a little bit. I just cut it off so that way I don't have to deal with, I probably have an extra 60, 70 feet of wire, so I cut it off. That way it's gonna be a little more manageable. So we're just gonna get it ran up into the ceiling joist and then brought down to the panel, and then we'll work on the panel. We'll do a little more detailed explanation on the panel when we get to that point. All right, guys, so I'm ready to get the wire inside of the cabinet, the electrical panel, and I want to give you an example of what I'm going to find in there, what I'm going to do, just because it's a little cramped in there, it's hard to record, and I just want to give you kind of a preview of what we got going on. So I'm going to have the wire going in. Look just like this. I'm just going to score the jacket of this and expose the wire so you can see I have one copper. This is going to be my ground, and then a white and a black, and these are going to be my power. So 120 volts, 120 volts. We're doing 240 volts on both of these wires here. So I just need to strip these back. 4 positions, and each position has 120 volts. So these first 2 combine 240 volts, 50 amps. So what I'm just need to unscrew these lugs so I can fit the wire in there. Insert that all the way, screwdriver, and then I'm just going to tighten that down. And then I'll do the same thing for this one. Insert that one, tighten that down, and then my ground bare wire is going to go to the grounding lugs inside the panel. And now what I'm going to do for the next set of wires, I'm going to have another set of cables, the existing wires that are in there for the existing wall connector. The black and the white are going to go into this side in the panel. And then just tighten those down. Now that I have my wire ready to enter the panel, I'm going to take the panel cover off so that I can start working on it. The panel's open, and here's my new wire, and I have it run down from the top. I'm just going to have it enter right through here, and that'll clamp it down, and it'll come down through here. And then this is my existing 60 amp breaker that my quad pole is going to replace. You see I've got a red and a white and a black already there. We're going to have another white and another black, and I just need to replace that. Just tighten the clamp so this is clamped in. Now I just need to estimate how much wire I'm going to need. I'm going to strip back the jacket very carefully with a razor blade. Just strip this back. Get the ground wire separated, and then the black and the white I'll be able to move down inside the panel here down the side and get it in position. Then I'll know kind of how much I need to cut off, how much wire I'm going to need. So the bare copper wire is the ground. I'm actually going to run that down from here down the side and ground it. There's a grounding bar right here, and there's a spot that only has 2 wires. I can ground that there just because I want to leave enough slack that right on this bottom grounding lug. Ground wire in. Okay, it's all the way through. Ground side is done. Now I just need to run my 2 hot wires down to my 60 amp breaker here, remove the breaker and replace it with the quad pole breaker. So just stripping the wires back, these are the wires for the new connector that's being installed. I'm going to put these inside of the breaker before I install it into the panel. I don't have the power turned off at the panel, so I'm going to very carefully do this and install this breaker without turning off the panel, the power to the panel. So in these middle 2 are going to be the new ones. So these are going in the middle 2 slots. It doesn't matter which slot they go. They're universal slots. So black or white on either side. So just want to make sure that both of these wires are screwed down. They're not loose inside this middle position. So again, I can do black or white in either of these 2 middle slots. And I have those down there. I'm just going to bend the wires to kind of get in place here. Now, this is my existing breaker here, and if I just pull back on it, and it'll pop right out of the panel here. So now it's not live anymore. So now I don't have to deal with dealing with any hot or live wires. And I just need to take out these wires out of the old 60 amp breaker, loosen the lugs, those will come out, and then I'm going to put these on the outermost positions. The black or the white can be in either position on this new 50 amp. There's a groove on the back of the breaker that hooks into the metal clip there, and then you just push this forward, and now it's active. So this outside one is my old one, so I flip that on. I'm now going to go out in the garage and check if my old existing wall connector is powered up, just to verify that the circuit is working. My wall connector this is my existing one. It's lit up, everything's good. Plug in. The car's fully charged, but we've got green lines. We're good to go there. So the existing one's working good. I do have to wait a little bit for this stuff to dry. After this dries, this really just right here where the wall connector is going to be, because I want to sand this down, do another coat, sand it down again, prime it, paint it, then we'll be ready to mount the wall connector. So as a final step before I put the cover back on, I just want to make sure that my connections are nice and tight. They are there. So I have the panel, the front panel turned back on. I'm going to flip the breaker for my existing wall connector, and then when I get the new one connected, I can flip that breaker and it will be active. Okay, our drywall's all repaired. We have the paint done. Now we can install the wall connector. So the wall connector goes on the wall here. Again, I knocked out this bottom right piece. It comes with these 2 screws. Now I do know from doing this that I've got a stud right next to this, so I'm just going to put a screw there and a screw there. I'm going to pre-drill it because it actually provides some really thick screws. I want to pre-drill the stud so it doesn't split the stud inside there. The kit provides this little tip here. It's kind of like a ball Allen wrench thing, but it fits that right there. So using these bolt cutters to cut off the wire here. So the wire is it goes around. So what I'll do is I'm going to strip this wire sheathing back. Very carefully score this. So I'm just getting my wire tucked in here. There is a provided zip tie to zip tie these wires up and out of the way. So I'm using that. Mine are still a little too long here. A black or white can go in either slot. There's no difference. The thing here says to strip the wire to this length. It's about 1 inch, so we're going to strip about 1 inch of the wire off. Let's trim back the zip tie. Line 1, line 2, and ground. So ground's on the far side. So I've got my ground wire in there. Line 2 is my white one. It can be the white or the black. The connections here actually use the same little ball Allen that you get in the kit here. All right, I'm not going to torque it down with this impact driver. It says to torque down to 50 inch-pounds. So that's really not a whole lot of force. Now let me just seat this down while I... So what I want to do is I want to hold the wire down into the slot so that there's like a screw. It's like a screw that's pushing against the wire that's holding it down. So I just want to make sure that it's connecting the wire, that this wire's staying in the middle. And you can see down here below, there's a little bit of the wire sticking out below there, which is just fine. So I'm just getting a driver, and I want to manually tighten this down. With this completely mounted, the wires now securely down, we're ready for the actual wall connector itself. Now this connects, these tabs here connect into these slots. That's where the power gets transferred. And then there's just 4 screws on the top, and 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. This has a rubber gasket all the way around it, so this is waterproof. You can mount this outside and it'll do just fine. These screws have the same ball Allen hex, and so we'll just get them started with this, and we'll tighten them down with the manual driver. Okay, got it installed on the wall here. Got the wire coiled up. So I'm going to go down to the basement. I'm going to flip the breaker to this, see if it turns on, and then we're going to set up. There's a Wi-Fi setting. We go in, we connect to this so that we can set up the breaker amperage and kind of configure it, and it can download any kind of updates that it has. So the wall connector has a QR code on the instruction manual. You just scan the QR code and you go to join the network. So we're going to join that. This is how we can configure the breaker setup. Okay, so once you're connected to the Wi-Fi in this, you just scan the QR code in the brochure. It takes you to this IP address here. Now we can configure our setup here. So we're going to go through the configuration here. So now that we're logged into the wall connector, we can go in and make sure that it shows a 50 amp breaker, which it does. So we can just save that setting and we're good. So the max output is going to be, you can see here, is 40 amps. So it only does about 80% of your rated breaker. So a 50 amp breaker, I can max do 40 amps, which is actually plenty. Line 1, line 2. So we're all good to go. All right, let's test out this wall connector here. Blue communicating. Green flashing is charging. Green line like that means it's charging, so looks like we're good to go. Alright guys, well thanks for watching the video. Hopefully you found this helpful or useful or at least entertaining. This is a pretty straightforward installation. As you could tell from my video, is that the hardest part for me was just running this wire down wall cavities, down this HVAC ducting. That was the hardest part. If you had a panel, most of the videos that I saw had like in their garage had their panel like right next to this thing, and running that would have been a piece of cake. But I didn't want any kind of conduit. I wanted the wire inside of the wall, and I wanted a really clean, nice look, and which this really gives. So really happy with how this turned out. Happy to be able to use this. Be sure to see links down below to any of the tools and things that I used in the video. Be sure to subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.